Thank you so much. Wow.
You got the motive.
All right. Would like to say,
I would, first, I'd like to thank Maplewood for being nice to me for these 50 years. Thinking, what am I doing? It's my first venture in business, and but the town has been great. The government's been great. The mayors have been great, from Ed Hume all the way up to Mayor Lucas. And so we go back a long way.
Yeah.
And I'll never leave Maplewood. I'll be here for the rest of my life.
Oh.
It was a great opportunity for me to be able to extend my career a few more years. And I thank Bernie, down and Bill Burns for taking me in and adopting me. But it's working out great. But again, thank you very much, people. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
okay, Mr. Breslin, you want to come on up? Right there at the microphone. So welcome and thank you. You filled out a volunteer form saying that you wanted to volunteer, and you indicated Board of Adjustment is one of those areas that you were interested in. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just formalize your appointment.
Turn the mic over at you.
There you go.
So again, thank you, Mayor DeLuca, Township Committee. Again, my name is Luke Breslin. I've been a Maplewood resident now since May of 2013. I live in Maplewood with my wife and new son, who's 7 months old. So we've been in Maplewood for quite some time now, and it's been nothing but great. And I just, wanted to take an opportunity to contribute to the town a little bit.
And what do you do for profession?
So yeah, I'm an attorney. Previously I was a management employment attorney, and currently I'm in-house counsel for a healthcare company in New Jersey.
Right.
So in terms of my interest in the Board of Adjustment, just have an interest in, I had experience with the board early when I moved to town, and just felt like it's an important thing for the town, smart growth, sustainable development, and just being a part of that process to make sure things continue to develop in a positive manner in town.
Terrific.
So,
anybody have any questions?
No.
So I would move Mr. Breslin's appointment to the Board of Adjustment.
No second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
And your first meeting is tomorrow night.
okay.
So you've got the information from Adele Lewis. Yeah, so it's tomorrow night. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
We're going to now have our first public comment session. Is there anyone who wants to address the Township Committee? You can come on up and just give us your name and address.
Yes, good evening. My name is William Andrews, 58 Lexington Avenue, here in Maplewood. I was at City Council, Mayor DeLuca. Good evening. The first thing I wanted to address was with regard to our library. You know, I've been a township resident here 25 years. And, you know, for the type of work I do, you know, I find myself, you know, in the library a lot. And it was maybe about a month ago, I spoke to the manager in charge of the library, the head librarian. And it's just really, every afternoon, just the level of noise, you know, it's just ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. You know, I know children are going to be children. You know, I addressed the situation to her, and, you know, all she had was just a blank stare. And I said to her that, you know, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable at all. You know, I understand the fact, you know, children are going to be children, but, you know, children have to understand at the same time, you know, you're in a public place, you know, you have to learn, you know, a certain level of discipline. And I told her that, you know, she really needs to right this wrong. Because it's really ridiculous that, you know, if you go to a lot, you know, I was in a conference room, and the level of noise, I understand the people who are on the outside there, if I could hear that in a conference room, kids being disruptive, then I know the people on the outside, were being disturbed. And they actually have a security guard there. And I'm like, what is the sense of paying a security guard right now? And the kids they're just constantly going at it. And it's like, nobody says anything.
This is at the main library, right?
This is the main library, yes it is.
Okay, we will, we'll convey that to the library director.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Yes, and the second topic I'd like to speak on is that I'm sure you're all aware of the city of Newark. Just last month, the city of Newark adopted an ordinance with regard to people leaving their cars running. And the city of Newark right now has an ordinance that, residents are going to be fined for leaving their cars, just idling in the morning, I think it's very safe to say that we have a lot of people come to our town. I think a lot of people say, well, Maplewood is safe. It's, it's very admirable to think that, hey, we live in a safe community and people, want to come here. But I know just on many occasions, I've gone to the Quick Check, right here on Springfield Avenue, down the street, the Wawa. And also in the morning, when I'm maybe say driving to the train station, I see cars idling. There was a situation that happened a few years back. I'm sure you remember Sergeant Morrison, Sergeant Morrison. Well, Sergeant Morrison was here, right? I think he's been retired 6 years now. But, I've known him for many, many years. We go way back 30 years. So I know one morning, I happened to see him, on patrol. So I stopped off at the Quick Check down here, just to, get a cup of coffee. And then, I was appalled to see a minivan that was sitting in the parking lot, running with a child in the back, unattended. And, I said, this is crazy. So I got out of my vehicle, I opened the driver's side door. I took the key out of the minivan. I walked into the Quick Check and I asked, does anybody here have it was a blue Dodge Caravan? And the owner of the vehicle happened to be back at the coffee station, in a conversation with someone in the back there. And I said, ma'am, you really shouldn't leave your vehicle running like that. And, she just went she just went ballistic, Oh, your name is not on the deed to my vehicle. How dare you go in my car? I said, ma'am, I don't like hearing about child abductions or, things about, because people don't use common sense. All it takes is 1 second. You go into a Quick Check, you come outside and your car is gone. And this is something that, it's really got to a point now where it's that, children are actually being left. I've seen this on many occasions. It's not just this one isolated incident where children are actually being left unattended in vehicles running. And I think that we really need to adopt some type of an ordinance that will, make people a little bit more aware that, there is going to be some type of penalties, for this. I mean, it's very, very disturbing. You hear about a child, because somebody went into the store and, they're not using common sense. You come outside, the vehicle's gone, the child's gone too with the vehicle. So, I really think that we really need to adopt something to make people more, aware of that, this is not acceptable.
So just two responses. One is we have, the state has an anti-idling law. It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
So we use that as the basis to enforce. And we have issued some tickets. Oftentimes we issue warnings rather than tickets, but if it's a repeat, we'll do that. On the second matter of if anyone sees a child left alone in a car, they should call 911 because it's an emergency.
That's what happened with the lady, I said, ma'am, right now, all I have to do is just make a telephone call. I said, there's a police officer here that will come here immediately. I said that, first of all, that's child endangerment.
Yeah.
Leaving a child unattended in a vehicle. It just takes a split second for somebody to jump in a car. Maybe it's cold outside one morning. Maybe a guy's got to go to maybe Newark, Irvington or whatever, jumps in a car, maybe goes a mile or whatever, abandons this car, leaves the child there. That's dangerous. And I think people need to be more aware of things like
Yeah,
this.
I would urge you not to do what you did because
Yeah,
you're violating laws by going into her car. And so you don't want to get yourself jammed up, or get into a situation where somebody goes ballistic even to
I
another
understand
degree.
that
Yeah.
was, but sometimes, when
It was just in your heart.
No, I
yeah.
understand.
On impulse, sometimes when you see
Right.
things like that, a child was endangered like that, and, maybe sometimes, you have to kind of
Mhm.
stop and think a little bit, but, it was all it's just
It's all
reaction.
real
Right.
quick.
Well, I think it's good that you reacted. What we would urge you to do, or anyone in the same situation, is just get on your phone and call 911 immediately and tell them there's a child abandoned in a car.
And
in the
then just
quick
wait
check
by the
parking lot.
vehicle so
Yeah.
that you can make sure nothing happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be good. Okay.
But one of the things that you did bring up has been brought to our attention too, which is the idling.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of residents that have approached me about idling, and so it's on our radar now to kind of go back and talk to our DPW and our law enforcement and jitneys and try to get the idling down to the 3-minute ordinance. So we're aware of that as well. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to address the Township Committee?
Good evening, Jeanette Page Hawkins, Essex County Representative. I, before you with an announcement about the Senior Wellness Day, that's September 26th. I sent out this a little while ago, but I just want to bring your attention to all the activities for the seniors that day. That's going to take place up at the Cody Arena. There will be food, breakfast, lunch, activities, free giveaways, and most important, a lot of information in regards to services throughout Essex County. So I'll leave the flyers once again. And also, it's been a while since I've been before you. So is there any issues or concerns that I can assist you with?
I just have a little pet peeve. We get a lot of paper mailed to us from the county executive. Just feels like since we all have official email addresses, I'd love to save postage and paper and have things emailed from Joe D's office instead of envelope after envelope. I know that sounds petty, but yes.
I've gotten some complaints that at the intersection of Parker Avenue and Irvington Avenue, I think that traffic lights are controlled by the county, that intersection.
Yes.
The don't walk sign never changes the walk.
Even when you press it?
So I have contacted the police chief, I'm assuming he contacted the county, but it's happened several times, so I'm wondering if there's something.
Okay, we'll look into that. We'll also address it. We'll have our engineer contact you, but Irvington and Parker?
Yes.
Okay.
I also have an issue, and this is not just a county issue. This is also a PSC&G issue and others who do work on roads in Maplewood. But
Oh,
it seems that recently, and I don't know, who's to blame, or maybe it's a collective failing. But when roads have been closed or when there's been road work that necessitated traffic being rerouted, a lot of that hasn't made it on to the Nixle system, and so there has either been there's no public notification or very late public notification. So to the extent the county is planning on any work, if they could just let the MPD and the relevant people in Maplewood know, so that can get into the Nixle system. Because there have been times where where a county road is suddenly not accessible or people have to go around. And we've had the same issue with PSC&G and others, but if that's something you could just relay, the county could make sure that they're more consistent in their communication and coordination if there's going to be any work requiring closing or rerouting any county roads.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? No, you can come up.
Hello, I think there were other folks here for the second public comment session, but I wanted to start off, and I want to apologize in advance for getting caught in the rain. And,
Oh, is it raining?
a little bit, but this is for you. So.
Do you want to hand anything up?
Huh?
Do you want to hand something up?
Yes, please.
And then just give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, I will. In my little speech I have. So, my name is Dr. Khadijah Costley White. I live at 202 Lexington Avenue. I was going to begin my comment tonight with a description of what you, the Township Committee, have done in regards to the events of July 5th, 2016. I was going to describe what's happened since that night and since the night you announced the release of the video so that all of us could witness what these kids have long been telling us happened. But I decided against that. You all know what's happened. You all know what's been done. I am a current resident of the Hilton section of Maplewood, a former resident of South Orange, a graduate of Columbia High School, and a New Jersey State employee as a professor at Rutgers University. Recently, I've done some organizing and started a group called Soma Justice in our community, which focuses on education, outreach, and advocacy around issues of social justice. I'm also a mom of a 10-month-old little boy, a beautiful dark brown skin, baby, already consistently in the 90th percentile in height. By all accounts, he's going to be a big child and a really tall man. I'm an aunt with 2 nephews, my complexion, and a sweet niece just starting 3rd grade. I love these children with brown skin and curly furrows. I was a Soma child with brown skin and curly furrow. And I have something else to admit. While I have extensively read on the videos that show the violence of July 5th, 2016, I have only been able to watch a small bit of them myself. Mentally and emotionally, I've been unable to do so, to see graphic images of children that look like me and my son and my nephews and my niece, brutalized, demeaned, denigrated, and treated like cattle by the people that are supposed to protect us, the people that me and other taxpayers pay to protect us. I don't have to tell you what happened that night was wrong. I probably don't even have to tell you that I've been working, supporting local protests, organizing a Know Your Rights events for teens, monitoring police at the most recent July 4th event, and meeting with fellow community members to make sure that this doesn't happen again. You know how much I care, how many of us care to make sure nothing like this happens again in our 2 towns, but firing Chief Cimino is not enough. He wasn't the one who used chemical agents on children trying to get home. He wasn't the one who kicked a teenager in the head or looked the other way when it happened. He might have issued orders that night, but he wasn't the one that chose to follow them. So tonight, I come, hopefully with all of your attention, to submit a list of recommendations for reorganizing our current police department and culture. This is a list approved and endorsed by a coalition of community groups such as Soma Justice, the Community Coalition on Race, the Black Parents Workshop, PAIRS, MAPSO Freedom School, and Soma Action. You will see that we think it's time for more community input on policing, better training, improved protocols on crowd management, and civilian oversight. We also recommend a commission made up of civilian volunteers and local experts on these matters who can help figure out how to move forward on these proposals. And we ask that the Township Committee convene a specific session that will address these recommendations, or to arrange a meeting with us and the Public Safety Committee to discuss how they will be implemented. We are serious about these changes. We are serious about getting involved, because we've seen what happens when we don't. We can't risk one of our children being killed by a local police officer after going out to see the fireworks in a nearby park. We simply cannot. We are also submitting a copy of these proposals to Hilliard Heinz, the law enforcement firm that is reviewing these events. And we're going to continue to show up here at these meetings to remind you all that we care, that we want change, that firing one man is not enough to resolve the actions of many. We have an opportunity to be the kind of community that we want to be, to police our community the way that we want, and we want to set a standard that will keep all of our children safe, every single one. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Okay, we'll close the first public comment. There will be another public comment later on. And we're going to move into our Board of Health meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2017 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2016, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Adams,
Here.
Mayor DeLuca,
Here.
Mr. Lembrick,
Here.
Mr. McGee,
Here.
Mrs. Larry.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larry.
Yes, thank you, and welcome to the September Board of Health meeting. You all received the minutes?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Can we get approval?
I move them.
Second.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larry.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Rowe?
In this month's report, I just wanted to add another upcoming program. This is called Stroke Risk Assessment. This is just here. Thank you. This Saturday at the community center from 1 to 3, we're having a meeting with People for Animals to try to rejuvenate and re-energize our trap, neuter, release program. I've been sending out emails and calling people who were involved, so I'm hoping we'll get a good turnout and the group will kind of reform and get back to work. So that's my hope for Saturday. I included a list of recommendations for improving the garbage situation. They're a little more detailed than last time, but they're not in ordinance form. Also, I put some recommendations for the planning board because my sense is that's a good place to start when you're talking about garbage rather than just putting as an afterthought where, we'll just throw a dumpster out back. I would like to see any new businesses that, particularly food businesses that have dumpsters, to have them on concrete pads. Personally, I think it makes it much more sanitary from my inspections over the years. One of the recommendations is when there's garbage dumpsters on township parking lots, that they should have lines so that I can say, okay, this is their dumpster, this is their dumpster, this is their dumpster, and they have to keep that area clean. One of the frustrating parts to me is when they point fingers at each other. One of the other towns, which I got the idea from, does make the business put their name on their dumpster. And might seem a little unusual, but it might go a long way to motivating businesses to keep their dumpster clean.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, then everybody knows whose dumpster looks like crap.
Yeah, exactly. And then what I'm going to start doing, especially with new businesses, but we'll work into the old businesses, is, I don't know that it's a legally binding contract, but I'm gonna make a list of what we expect from them for their garbage, and I'm gonna have them sign it. And I'm gonna sign it, and they're gonna sign it. It's almost like a contract. They're gonna do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and hoping that'll motivate people to keep their garbage areas a little cleaner. None of these things cost a lot of money. In my report, I showed some photos of garbage where they're all lined up neatly and the ground under them is clean. I think that's not so bad in my book, even though some people don't like to look at dumpsters. I don't mind that. But I also showed dumpsters that are littered, broken. And then I also showed the 3 dumpsters behind 149 Maplewood Avenue. And that's one of the places where they point their fingers at each other all the time.
149.
So it's Bill and Harry's, the yogurt
Okay.
shop, and there's a deli, a grill and deli. So I think that's a place where the lines would look really well, and that is a township parking lot. They're putting their dumpsters on township property, and so we could ultimately tell them they can't do it. I don't want to have to do that, but I do want them to keep it clean.
Right, I agree.
So that's the gist of that report.
Mr.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Desiderio, is there some sort of, if like Mr. Rowe is saying, to do sort of a contract or letter of understanding between the health department and a business owner as a dumpster, is it something, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, generally, there has to be a consideration for it, so I'm not sure that that's the case. I think it's more of a gentleman's agreement, quite frankly. I'm not sure that we could bind somebody by that. If it's the township's property,
Right,
then it's a different story. Because then the option is, in order to do that, in order to have the privilege of placing your dumpster on private property.
you have to
excuse me,
adhere
on
to
public
these.
property,
Yeah.
you have to comply. If it's their own property, it's a little bit more difficult.
We had talked about, I thought, we talked about amending the ordinance to include some of these things. Were you able to go back and look at the ordinance and I see these are suggestions, but what I'd like you to do is go back, look at the ordinance and amend it, sort of redline it, I guess, amend it, and then we can see how it would fit in. We can see where the suggestions become codified, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yes, I can do that. And just to let you know, I did talk with about a half dozen other towns, Westfield, Union, West Orange, Montclair, to talk about their garbage, which they have very similar problems to us. So that's where I got some of the ideas from.
Have they put any of this in ordinance form?
I think some of them just use the general sanitation ordinances, which would basically say you have to keep your garbage area clean. Westfield was the one who did the written agreement, and I'm trying to think which one may put their names on it. I don't remember right off.
Was Westfield's written agreement for public property use or private or both, or doesn't
I
matter?
think they did it with all food businesses when they licensed them. Maybe it was somewhat of a gentleman's agreement, but it made it very much clear. I always talk to people about garbage and tell them what the rules are, but this, I think when you write it down, there's less chance for misunderstanding.
So what kicks off the requirement to have a dumpster? Not every
Volume
food
of the
business.
garbage. So some businesses have regular toter size garbage cans.
Right.
And I think if they can use that, I would much prefer to see those. But if they have a very large amount of garbage, then the dumpsters are what they need. And the other part of it was making recycling at least twice a week rather than once a week. I think that'll help.
Just so we're clear, the pictures you're showing us, that's not public property. The pictures behind Arturo's.
They are.
No, it's not.
Arturo's is not technically.
But it's a public parking lot.
No, it's not. That section is not.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting.
And the other dumpster you're showing up behind Village Coffee, that's also not.
But even if it's private property, there's property maintenance, like I can't leave broken garbage cans
Right.
all over my property and garbage, so why wouldn't the same enforcement?
No, it's
Same
just a
would.
different rationale. You were using, you were saying that they were using public property. They're not. And the area behind the movie theater where these other, or behind Bergdorf where these others are, there's something in the deed there
Yes.
that allows them to have it. I'm not sure if that is actually public property or is it deed restricted? For sure it's deed restricted, but, so I think the way to go is what Ms. Adams is suggesting, is we go from a public, health, property maintenance, as opposed to any kind of you using public space.
Right. Okay, so all businesses would be required to do.
Right.
Public.
Right,
As they should
Happen
be
to have
anyway.
Public space or it's private. space.
but as Ms. Larry said, I'd love to see you go through the ordinance and make recommendations to additions or amendments to that
Yeah, and I would like to say I spoke with Julie Duran for a while about it, and she had some ideas. I don't think she's had a chance to run it by her.
No, the board doesn't meet till
Alliance
next
and
week.
Partnership.
Right.
yet. So my sense is we should kick it around a little bit with the different committees and maybe find some ways to improve it and then put it into ordinance form. I'd rather do it right and take a little longer. But this is how far I've gotten so far.
Mr. Rowe, I have a question for you, and it's actually not related to dumpsters. When I read your report, the letter that you sent to the Board of Ed regarding the rodent infestation,
Yes.
I'm concerned about that. It's dated August 24th. It's been 2 weeks. Have you got a response from them yet about this?
I haven't gotten a response. I did speak with the maintenance supervisor and also the YMCA director who runs the after-school programs. I sent him a copy and he said he would be complying with it.
Has this been shared with the Board of Ed yet? School board, rather?
I sent it to the superintendent with copies as noted below, the YMCA,
No.
the
Principals.
after-school program, the principals. Each principal got one.
Yes. This is concerning to me, as a parent of a middle schooler about this situation. So I'd like to see this get more light and see some
Okay.
action about the situation.
So should I forward a copy to the Board of Education?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I will do that.
Yeah. I mean, from what you read in your report, it's just, it's unacceptable to have classroom areas showing infestation of mice.
Right.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's all about food.
Understood.
Not all school districts allow their children to eat in the classrooms. So it's become the common thing to do in our school district, but
Okay. Well, I do think some of the recommendations that you provide are excellent and they just need to be disseminated immediately.
okay, I'll
Yep.
get that out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Two more quick things, and I'm sorry if I'm taking too long. One is, we've had the very bad hurricane in Texas, and now there seems to be another one bearing down on Florida, and then there's apparently another one behind that. So one of the things that the health department does is called the Medical Reserve Corps, and it's you don't have to be a doctor or a nurse to join it. There's two Medical Reserve Corps in Essex County. One is Newark, which wants to organize their own people, and the other is for the rest of Essex County. It's run by the Essex Regional Health Commission, which I've mentioned here from time to time. They're the emergency planners for public health in Essex County, except Newark. And I would really urge people to sign up for that. They can call me, I'll tell them how to sign up. They will get some training. It's not overly extensive training. It's more of the just-in-time type training. And the people medical professionals who are in the Medical Reserve Corps do get legal liability protections when they're working as members of the Medical Reserve Corps, say they're working in a shelter or in some other situation. So I'm thinking right now we got to reach out to as many doctors and nurses as we can
if we, the more prepared we are with volunteers, the better. So I'll be working on that. But just generally speaking, any citizen could join this. Finally, you may have gotten word that our longtime public health nurse supervisor, Barbara Gist, is retiring at the end of the month. She's had a long and distinguished career. She's worked for Maplewood since 1980. So if you think of all the public health crises that we've had in these last 30 years, she's been right in the middle of it, helping the people of Maplewood. And she's very professional, very knowledgeable. Couldn't have asked for a better person to work with. So I'm going to miss her, and I think we do need to give her some recognition at some point.
Okay. End of this month?
Yes.
Perhaps you could work with Ms. Fritzen
Yes.
on a,
Okay. Thank you. That's my report.
I have a
Yes.
follow-up. Can we lay out some next steps for the dumpster moving forward instead of, I don't want to just leave it kick it around to different committees. I want to see something happen with it, even though.
Well, I was thinking code enforcement would be a good committee to discuss it. I think you're on that committee.
Yep.
I'd be happy to come to the committee and explain my rationales and see if they have any ideas for improvement.
Okay,
I
Ms.
would-
Larry, you chair that one?
I do. Actually, it's next week,
Next Monday?
Monday. Yes.
Monday. And you
Nice
meet
and
at
early.
8 a.m. or
7:30.
7:30.
6 o'clock in the morning.
You are welcome to come. In fact, now you're expected to come.
7:30 Monday.
I would still, I understand the need to kick it around and talk to other committees. I would still urge you to, actually, I'd say direct you rather to
At the ordinance.
redline an ordinance, because if we know we're going in that direction, I would rather be kicking ideas around and putting it down in an ordinance than just kicking it around.
Right.
So why don't we do that while we're kicking around?
Absolutely.
And thank you for your research on it, reaching out. It's really helpful.
Any other questions for Mr. Rowe? No. Feel free to join us on Saturday for the feral cat discussion.
Oh,
I think I'm going to send a special invitation, long distance, to Mr. Brownlee. At this point, we come to the time when we ask if anyone from the public wants to address the Board of Health. Is there anyone who would like to address the Board of Health? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Some of,
Second.
Ms. Adams,
yes.
Mayor DeLuca,
yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're back on item number 9 on the regular agenda. That's an ordinance on final passage.
Mayor, item number 9, ordinance on final passage. Ordinance number 2869-17. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will add East Cedar Lane and South Pearson Road as streets on which there shall be no vehicle parking within 5 feet of a public or private driveway.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Can we get a motion, Ms. Adams?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second. Any discussion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I think the public show that this ordinance is based on the fact that residents that live by Cedar Ridge and by the Parkwood Diner have been interested in having this done for some time. So just to help in terms of them getting it out of their driveways. So.
Great, thank you. Please call the roll.
You want to talk about it?
Ms. Adams,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry because I don't understand the process.
You can come up. Just give us your name and address.
Joanne Hankey, 11 East Cedar Lane. I did not know this was going to be on the agenda. I'm here with my son because he's going to be an Eagle Scout and he had to attend a meeting. I just have a question. Our street is very narrow and very small, and that's the reason why this problem came up, because a lot of people from Cedar Ridge and the stores on Ridgewood Park, especially at the upper part of the street, and a lot of my neighbors can't even get out of their driveway to make the turn because there's so much parking. I'm more curious about the 5 feet ruling. I guess that's normal procedure in this situation, but a lot of, if you're on our street, I know Nancy has been, Miss Adams, our driveways are so close together to our neighbors, our properties are so small that I'm almost afraid if we park in front of our own houses, that if we're 5 feet away from our driveway, we're not going to be 5 feet away from the driveway behind us. So will we be penalized as citizens of our own property? Like, I'm confused about how this is.
So our engineer went over there and did an assessment, and I'm not sure if he measured, but he eyeballed it and thought that a car could fit. But the answer is yes. If whoever's parked there, police are not going to know who it is.
Right.
So this is what we have done in other areas. But we've in both situations, because South Pearson is the same problem. They're narrow lot, or they're not very wide lots. But our engineers looked at this and told us that it would work.
We also, he did get input from your neighbors too, because one of the suggestions we asked the neighborhood to think about to solve the problems that you're having is to have alternate side of street parking. And we were of the understanding that
we would be
nobody
penalized
wanted
from
that.
it because all the parking would be taken immediately by the Cedar Ridge
So,
customers. And,
Right.
I mean, nothing's, if it doesn't work or if there's more problems because of this, we can look at it again. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, at our engineering public works meeting, we talked to the engineer about, and DPW about just striping a line so that you could show where 5 feet was, so that people would be more inclined to not block the end of the driveway. Because I think the larger problem right now is exactly that people can't get out of their own homes.
So moving forward, when this passes, will you have patrol cars going in the morning looking at the area?
No, generally what will happen is it will be for someone who's too close to a driveway, you'll call the police.
Yeah.
And then they'll come. We don't have the police personnel to do this kind of, but it'll be more in response. If we find that there's a lot of problems, we might ask the police to do some patrols through. But more than the way it's going to work is that it'll be on a demand response basis. Somebody will say, I can't get out of my driveway. Somebody's right up against it, and the cops will come. They'll try to figure out who owns it. And if they can't find somebody, they'll give a ticket.
So this will then be a word of mouth. Will there be any signage?
Yes, there'll be
Yeah, there'll be
signage.
signage.
Oh, there will be, okay.
Yeah.
But not only that, but now there'd be a law for somebody to call and the police to enforce. Whereas right now, if somebody's blocking the driveway, they can call and complain, but there's really no teeth that they can ticket them or even tow them. That ends up happening.
I had to ask, so I have the knowledge. So I could bring
Sure,
it back to
absolutely.
my neighbors, but thank you very
So now
much.
you can
Okay.
be interviewed by your son for his merit.
Okay, anyone else? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have another ordinance on final.
Item 10, Mayor, ordinance number 2870, there's 17, an ordinance to amend Chapter 271 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Zoning and Development Regulations. This ordinance will implement certain zoning bulk requirements for residential properties located within R17, R15, R14, and R24 districts within the Township of Maplewood.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one, Ms. Adams, can we get a motion?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk to be directed to publish the same as a past ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second. Ms. Adams, would you like to say anything about this?
Yes, Mayor, we've been, the planning board discussed this after it was approved on first reading at its planning board meeting, and I believe sent a letter.
Yeah, I received a memo from the board secretary advising the planning board passed a resolution finding that the ordinance is consistent with the master plan.
Correct, and it's also to try to keep the character of Maplewood by having restrictions that we currently don't have with regard to, in particular, building coverage and lot coverage. So I'm very happy to see this be adopted.
Any comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We have a new ordinance.
Item 11, Mayor Ordinance 2868-17. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will add a yield sign on Plymouth Avenue at its intersection with Oakland Road, a yield sign on Porter Avenue with its intersection with Oakview Avenue, a yield sign for the eastbound lane of Oakland Road at its intersection with Oakland Terrace, and a yield sign Oakview Avenue at its intersection with Oakland Road.
So, Mr. Desiderio, just to be clear, it's Porter Avenue and Oakland Road,
Yes.
correct?
We originally put Oakview in and engineering didn't pick it up, and after it was introduced, they did, so it had to be reintroduced and republished.
Right, but in the description that Ms. Fritzen just read, and in the agenda, it says Oakview Avenue. It should be Oakland Road.
Should be Oakland Road, that is correct.
Okay. So this is on introduction. There's no public hearing at the moment. Ms. Adams, can we get a motion?
Yes, Mayor. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on September 19th.
Second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we have 4 discussion items. The first is the crane safety ordinance.
Yes. Where are my notes? Hold on. There's too many papers. Hold on. Sorry. Mayor, this ordinance, we had, well, not an ordinance, we're offering up to the Township Committee to put an ordinance in place, as other municipalities do, with regard to cranes operating in town. Obviously, we had a large one over at the new development on the old PSENG site. Erin Rice, the community coordinator for, I forget the name of the organization, but she came to us at Engineering and Public Works to discuss safety issues with crane operations in other municipalities and how they enforce safety regulations. Municipalities have been looking to the union to penalize offending crane operators, and a solution she's recommending and her organization recommends would be to require by ordinance crane operators to apply for a crane permit requiring certification and licenses. By definition, a crane follows OSHA definition. The ordinance would require a crane company to hold both national and New Jersey licenses, to present proof of inspection and a certificate of insurance, and could include a flexible fee schedule. It could also stipulate a residency requirement and could be waived in emergency situations. And tree services would be exempt from the crane regulations. But mostly that's basically what this is about. And we have a sample ordinance that I can circulate to the Township Committee afterwards. And I know Mr. Desiderio has taken a look at this as well. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, Ms. Adams, is I think that the insurance requirements are way too low for the
Okay.
nature of the operation. $500,000 and $1 million, I think, is not adequate. I would suggest at least $3 million. Given the nature of the operation, I don't think that that's crazy. So that would be the one thing that I would suggest.
Okay.
And I would, I mean, this draft says operator shall reside in the municipality. If not, they should be in the county, or they should reside in New Jersey. I guess the question is, how easy is it to get a waiver? I don't know if it's described in here about getting a waiver, and I would hate to see a situation where we have an ordinance and they can't get somebody to work.
You mean for an emergency situation?
No, just in general.
Just in general.
I have no idea if anybody in Maplewood has any
Yeah,
of
I'm not
these.
sure I necessarily see the reason for a residency requirement.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean, much as I'd like to see full employment of Maplewood-based crane operators.
I think we probably don't have that. So, anybody have any questions or thoughts, or should we just?
How about we circulate the draft?
Okay.
Perfect.
And then we put it on for a discussion at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Okay, I will reach out to Ms. Rice to see if she can attend next discussion time, so she can answer your questions.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks, Nancy.
sure. That's all I have on that, Mayor.
Okay. Next up is the 2% cap on police and fire arbitration contract awards. Mr. Manning, could you talk a little bit about the interest arbitration, how it worked or how it works?
So this law, which is expiring, says that an arbitrator, when considering the economics of a deal with police or fire unions, there's a limit in total of 2%. So in other words, whatever the total salary and wages were, base salary and wages were, they cannot be raised more than 2%. And that includes everything including step increases, et cetera. The step increases, I forget the other, I think longevity, those types of things. They can't increase it more than 2%. And this has been very helpful in our budget because our people have come prepared to accept the law. And they've been very helpful. I have to say both the PBA and the FMBA have been very cooperative in terms of this. So that there are other things that they can get or they look for in terms of settling things, but that's the crux of it. It expires, I think it's the end of this year.
Yes.
And municipalities throughout the state are being asked to support it to be continued.
And before this, what was generally the interest arbitration awards?
Anywhere from 6 to 10%. For at least the last 15 years prior to that.
Okay. So this was raised at the last meeting, and we agreed to put it on for consideration. It's on the consent agenda 168-17. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? I support this. I think at least as a basis of negotiation, we ought to stick to what particularly since we have a 2% cap on raising our taxes.
Mr. Mayor, I support this fully.
I do too.
Okay. Anybody want to say anything else? Okay. Well, it's on the consent agenda, so when we get there, we can just move it forward. Next up, we have a legal settlement to discuss with the Fair Share Housing Center of New Jersey. Just a quick background, Maplewood has had certifications over the years with the State Council on Affordable Housing. We've met the requirements set forth in the law. We have provided both rehabilitation of housing and also new housing as per the COA requirements. In 2015, the Supreme Court throughout the COA system. And we should state here that one of the objectives of the Governor Christie, was to decimate COA, and he did. And had no interest in making sure that affordable housing was being built. And so the court recognized that. There was a lawsuit brought by the Fair Share Housing Center of New Jersey and challenged the whole COA system and the agreements that municipalities across the state had. So we have been in negotiations with Fair Share Housing to settle this court case, because each municipality has to go to court and come up with a plan and numbers as to how they're going to move forward. So we've been talking. Our Maplewood Affordable Housing Board has met over the course of the year with our attorneys and our consultants, and we've put together what we think is a good plan for Maplewood. The plan would create and maintain affordable housing through July 2nd, 2025. So we would have 8 more years of a roadmap, if you will, going forward. And basically the settlement agreement includes a rehabilitation obligation of 6 units. That is a minimum. I think the Affordable Housing Board is agreeable or recommends to go beyond that. The mandatory set-aside ordinance, which currently, if you build a rental housing, it's 10%. That will go to 15% of affordable units of any residential development of 5 or more. And if it's any residential development of 5 or more that is for sale, that would be 20% would be affordable. So I'll give you an example. If you built 200 units of housing, you would have to go, 30 of those would have to be affordable. If you built 100 units of housing, 15 would have to be affordable. If they were for sale, that would be 20% of each of those. We would include in our redevelopment plans for areas 1, 2, and 3 the same 15% for rentals and 20% for sale units. The proposed assisted living facility, the affordable assisted living facility that we've been negotiating with a developer on, 50% of those units would be Medicaid eligible, and those would be counted towards our age-restricted obligation. And lastly, the Maplewood Country Club, currently there's an overlay zone that if the club was closed and sold and developed, that there is an allowance there for 8 units an acre. That would be maintained. There's currently a provision that you could reduce that requirement with a buyout. That would be eliminated. So there would be 8 units per acre on the entire 89 gross acres of the country club, or 712 units. 20% of those 712 units would be affordable, and that would be 142 units. That would only kick in if, in fact, the country club was sold. If it wasn't sold, there would be no change. There's not going to be any housing built there. But if any time between now and 2025, if the country club was sold, there would be a zoning requirement to create 8 units per acre of housing. And that could be done with higher density housing in certain areas and lower density housing in others. And of course, they would have to take into account the wetlands portion of the golf course that we'd have to deal with.
Mayor, is that if it's sold and remains as a golf course, does it still need to meet any? Okay.
No, if someone else bought it as a golf course, no. It's only if it's developed. The one other requirement is there's a fair share housing, because we're settling with them. There would be a $5,000 payment to Fair Share Housing to cover their legal costs. So that is the proposal that's in front of us. I think it's a good proposal. It again sends us or gives us a roadmap as to how to move forward. Right now, we're getting absolutely zero guidance from the state. They really are not helping at all. In fact, under this administration, there's just a roadblock, and we're on our own. And this would be a way to settle that and to move forward and to do what we're doing. I might add that the rehab program is a $20,000 program. It's income eligible. There's a deed restriction on the house for 10 years. If the property is sold before those 10 years are up, there's a prorated repayment to the town, and that goes back into the affordable housing. If the income eligible family stays in there for 10 years, then that loan is forgiven. And that's for life safety matters of furnaces and windows and a roof and things like that. It's been a way to allow current homeowners in Maplewood and tenants to stay here and be able to afford the place that they live in. So again, this is a matter that's on the consent agenda. We can open the discussion. The process is that we would, Mr. Desiderio, just to be sure legally, we would sign this agreement. It would go to the court. If we approve it tonight, we would sign the agreement. It would go to the court. There would be the judge would hold a hearing.
Yeah, there's what's called a fairness hearing. There will be notice that we'll have to publish in the news record, giving people notice of the proposed settlement. The public will have an opportunity to go to the court and to offer any opinions, either pro or con. The judge will then make a determination as to the reasonableness of the settlement, and if he finds it reasonable, then he will approve it, and we will have a court order.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments or questions about the settlement agreement?
And you don't see any reason why he would find it unreasonable?
No, I can tell you that both my office and COA Council, Affordable Housing Council, COA Council, Mr. Serenian's office have worked hard in pounding out this agreement, and it's both our recommendations that the committee approve it and move forward. We think that the settlement is a fair settlement, consistent with the policies of this township with regard to affordable housing, but yet reasonable in its aspects, and takes away the unknown factor of a developer coming in and wanting to overdevelop, which is a concern. Okay.
All right, so it's on the consent agenda. And lastly, there's another item on the consent agenda, and that's the designation of Mark Corelli. Well, I guess it's 1581 Springfield Avenue LLC as the preferred developer for redevelopment of the Jewelry Mart on Springfield Avenue. Mr. Corelli, I believe as of now, has a contract of sale.
I think he actually closed.
I think he closed, right? Yeah, he closed this week, I think, right? Yeah.
I think that's what I saw.
So this would, for 90 days, designate Mr. Corelli's limited liability company as the redeveloper and allow us to negotiate a redevelopment agreement. It would also set up a $7,500 escrow that he would pay to the township to hold, and that would cover our fees, our legal fees related and planning fees related to the negotiation of the redevelopment agreement. Mr. Corelli's plan is to leave that building up, to renovate it, to make it look more attractive than it is right now, and to build a couple of stories of apartments above that. But the first floor would be retail, and he's looking at a few different options. So this would be a reuse of the current building with new apartments above. He's got a parking lot behind, and actually I think there will also be retail in the basement, so there'd be two areas for retail and two floors of apartments.
Just in time for our affordable housing agreement.
Yes, he would be required to do 15%, yes. So that's also on the consent agenda. Anyone have any comments about that or questions? No. Okay. That's it for the discussion items. I've mentioned the consent agenda a few times. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yes, on numbers 1 through 16. I have to abstain on numbers 17 and 18.
He was on vacation.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. We're at our second public comment session. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee at this time? Just come up and give us your name and your address.
I am Kelly Quirk. I'm at 152 Parker Avenue. And I'm here tonight as one of the co-chairs of SOMA Action's Immigrants' Rights Committee. First, I wanted to reiterate our support for SOMA Justice's work and the recommendations that were made earlier.
Excuse me.
And second, I wanted to just reiterate our community's dedication to being a welcoming community in light of some national immigration matters that are coming to a head. As we all know from the news today, the DACA program is set to expire sunset in 6 months. But in addition, specific to our community is equally concerning that TPS status, or temporary protective status for Haitian immigrants, is set to sunset in January of 2018. As we know from Community Coalition on Race's demographics report, that represents about 2% of our population as Haitian immigrants, and the biggest concern is that enforcement of that will not just focus on folks whose TPS status may have changed, but on the community as a whole. So I'd like to reiterate the need for you as our elected officials, while our police department is in a state of flux, to reiterate the need of the department to uphold the operational order and not proceed with using perceived immigration status as part of enforcement actions. Further, to be clear, while DACA is sunsetting and TPS is sunsetting, people's individual visa status changes based on their date of their visa being issued. So it's not that January 18th, 2018, everybody who has TPS status, their work permit expires. It expires based on when their time period does. But there's considerable concern in the community that people will be targeted or thought, as of that day, I'm undocumented, when they're not. So any efforts we can make as elected officials to hold people to what the reality of the situation is, that people's immigration status is individual to them. The people most skilled in knowing how to manage immigration status are those who are trained in handling immigration status. That's federal officers, not our local departments. And with that, just to put it on the radar, SOMA Action is going to have a couple of teach-ins in the fall. We'll come and give you the dates specific about TPS status, what's changing, what we see changing, and DACA status and how that's changing as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Two things. One, I did meet with the new chief and gave him the operational order and told him that he needs to follow through on this. And second, would you...
Mayor, I'm sorry, acting chief.
Acting chief, sorry. Would you, when you have the information about this, the workshops, would you send that to him too?
Yes.
The acting chief? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Oh, Counselor, there we go.
Good evening. My name is Erin Scherzer. I live at 49 Oberlin Street. I'm here today as a trustee of the Community Coalition on Race. I'm specifically here as the chair of the new chair of the Residential Committee, which is a major arm of CCR's work since the founding of the organization. I'm here to speak about the police action or lack thereof action here in Maplewood over the years. Maplewood has been at the forefront of progressive values. Many people have moved to this community, specifically in our neighborhoods, which is the lifeblood of why this is Maplewood, because of those values. Through the Township Committee, we've seen your extraordinary work leading the charge with welcoming cities to marriage equality and so much more. And I think many people move here with an understanding that those progressive values move into other aspects of our work as a township. Unfortunately, I think many people feel very betrayed that our policing doesn't yet meet the progressive values of our community. And so the Community Coalition is very proud to stand in solidarity with SOMA Justice and the various proposals that have been put forth. I believe copies have been provided to you, both in terms of not just how we handle large groups of individuals that are many functions, but also in terms of our day-to-day operations of police, in terms of policing in our towns. We obviously all want to feel safe, but above all, we all want to feel welcome. Safe means, for some people, safe means being able to walk down the street as a Black person and not be harassed by our the law enforcement that our tax dollars pay for. That's what safety means for many people in our community that live here, that pay taxes here, that visit here to frequent our many businesses and our many events. And so that we stand behind and with Soma Justice and their various proposals that they put forward. I noticed in the consent agenda that there are 2 new probationary police officers that were approved. One thing I wanted to reiterate in terms of CCR's work, both the executive director and the chairman, Robert Marshman, met with Chief Semino before his departure back during the spring months and emphasized to him the need for training of new police officers, anti-bias training. Many of those are in the proposals that Soma Justice put forward. We just urge you, as these 2 new individuals come forward, we have a new beginning in this town, and it's time to bring those progressive values so that all are welcomed and treated fairly and right in our community. I've seen, just in my limited time here, through my work in the neighborhoods, both College Hill and other places, I've seen the wonders that this township committee is able to do. And I hope that wonder through the many changes and unfortunate events that have happened here, that can also continue in the work in our policing. I did want to flag that many in our community are engaged on this issue. There was there's a packed house here on August 1st, and people continue to meet and continue to engage on this topic. It won't go away. And I really urge that the changes, starting with those 9 bullet point items there, be the baseline for the change moving forward. Thank you so much for your time. And one last thing, the Community Coalition will have a conversation on racism on September 12th at the Woodlands, starting at 7:30. It's a chance to discuss that issue. It's called Racism. It's in our backyard too. And it's a time where we're going to connect people with these various action networks through Soma Justice, through Soma Action and the MAPSO Freedom School, all of those different channels for people to get out and make meaningful changes. So thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just one thing, because you raised the discussion with the Chief Semino, Mr. Marchman, and
Ms. Gagne.
And Ms. Gagne. And I know I was at the meeting, and then we had a follow-up phone call when Mr. Lembrecht was on, where Mr. Marchman hooked us up with an expert. At the same time we were having those conversations, we were also determining to bring in an expert to look at July 5th. So we brought in Hilliard Hines. So that report, we expect to get a preliminary report mid-September. Part of that will also include some training recommendations. So we're going to merge the recommendations from the CCR, the things we got tonight, and whatever we get from Hilliard Hines, and put that all as a package. So, and I explained to Mr. Marchman that one of the reasons we kind of delayed on the training is because we wanted to see what the consultants that we brought in were going to tell us. So we didn't want to take steps without understanding the whole thing. So
I appreciate it. I mean, it's a very complex topic, and it's changing not only policy, but it's changing culture. And culture is incredibly hard to change. We look forward to seeing that report, and we also look forward to seeing how that works with the 9 items listed on the proposal that Dr. Costley-White presented earlier today.
Right, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Heather Craven.
Hold on a second.
Heather Craven, I live at 8 Highland Place. Somewhat new resident of Maplewood, moved here about 6 months ago, and did move here in part because of really admiring the diversity of this area. I was absolutely appalled by the events of July 5th, 2016, and just also really want to urge the committee to take very seriously the recommendations made by Soma Justice and other groups and to really stay on this issue. We really do need, we need transparency, we need accountability, and we need to know that our neighbors, especially our young neighbors, are being protected and served by our police force.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
My name is Kasha Pikars. I'm at 491 Prospect Street. I'm here as a member of Summer Justice and also as a concerned citizen. I just want to stand here in support of the comments that previous people have made concerning the police department and its relationship to the community as regards to people of color and immigrants. I was very encouraged by the council's unanimous decision to put chief of police on notice after the release of the videotapes. But it's my hope that the council recognizes that this is just one very small baby step in the direction of true justice. One point I would like to emphasize is that while our numbers may seem small compared to August 1st today, the document that we've presented here today was written in coalition with Community Coalition on Race, Maps of Freedom School, Black Parents Workshop, particularly those last two groups who were, as we know, critical to bringing the issues of vigilante to the forefront in the first place. It was also inspired by Coalition Zero, which is a nationally recognized group that helps communities like ours organize in an efficient and effective way to help combat these problems. So we didn't just make these things up out of thin air, but sort of looked for resources that could really help us do this in a smart and effective way. So it is my hope, as with everybody else, that the council takes this document seriously and proactively works with our groups to create a safer community for our residents and visitors of color and immigrants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close that public comment session. We'll move into administrative reports. Mr. Manning.
Yes, thank you. I have 3 items. One, I want to point out to the public that on Friday afternoon, Town Hall will be closed from approximately 12:30 onward. We'll reopen on Monday at 9 a.m. This is due to our employee recognition day, which I think it's our 15th or 16th employee recognition day that we have. Also, Township Committee is invited to the festivities. I think you know where they're located, etc. The farmers market, of course, is doing there. They were there They were there this Labor Day. It was one farmer, but was doing a great business. I was there, and so come on down. Fall produce is coming now into the market, so come on over. The market will be open until through the Monday before Thanksgiving Day. So that should be good. Open Space Trust Fund. I'm a little confused because we put this together and then I went on vacation and today have recognized that I think the Open Space Trust Fund approved an additional $5,000 for the study, the architectural study.
Yes.
Yep, they did. So we have to, all right, then at the next meeting, now that I know that's done, we'll have we'll establish the account and we will have a resolution there for you to, kind of activate the whole thing and then they can move ahead. If you remember, they had $15,000 and nobody was picking up the RFPs, et cetera. So they went back to the state, the Historic Preservation. It was recommended that they raise the fee a bit to $20,000. I think that's more in line with what's going on out there in the market now. So they're going to do that, and I'll have that for you on the next agenda. Those are all the items that I had. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them if I can.
I'd like to put something in. This is just, Mr. Manning, and this is something that I'll also put on the agenda for next week's public safety meeting. But, I think as a town, and I know this is partly on the MPD and maybe on DPW and PSE&G and the county and others, but, I think, we have this Nixle system and other ways of communicating road closures and things to residents. And if we could just get better coordination and communication among our departments, and also with our partners, whether it be at the county or PSC&G or New Jersey American Water or anyone else who may need to close a street to do work, to make sure that the police department's aware of that and it goes out on Nixle. If for no other reason than every time a street is closed and it's not on Nixle, I get calls, I get emails, I get texts, I get tagged on Facebook, and I usually end up having to call you. So if you could just sort of get that out there to the department heads to make sure if there's anything that's going to involve a road closure or rerouting of traffic, to get that to the MPD so that they know about it and they can get that out on Nixle so the public has notice, that would be much appreciated.
Yes, it seems that has kind of fallen off in terms, usually we got 2 or 3 Nixles at least a day. So that has fallen off. We'll bring it back.
Yeah, and it may, I know there's new leadership and there's probably a lot on the plate here at 1618, but I think if we could just reemphasize that we have this Nixle system and, we need to use it because, there are people in the public who rely on it.
Right. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Manning.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Desiderio.
I have one item, Mayor. Due to inadvertence, there was a resolution that should have been on the agenda that was not, and it's a resolution approving an ambulance service agreement with Atlantic Ambulance Corporation. This generates from the fire department, and basically it's the continuation of a program that we have had in the past, and it is in those situations where a EMT service is called for a medical emergency, and our fire department is there also. It basically says that the billing process has to go through the EMT service, which is Atlantic Ambulance Corporation. So it is a continuation of that service, and I would ask your consideration so that we can move this forward. It should have been on the agenda. It was not. It is something that is a continuation of a prior agreement.
Is Atlantic Ambulance Monarch or is it different?
Different.
It is different, I believe.
Different.
Yeah, I don't know.
It is Monarch, I believe, was with a hospital down the shore.
Monarch and Atlantic are separate.
I defer to our expert with regard to that issue. But I believe they're related to Atlantic Healthcare. Atlantic Ambulance is related to Atlantic Healthcare.
That's Atlantic Health.
Which is Overlook and those facilities.
So we need a motion to approve
Please,
the agreement with Atlantic Ambulance.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larry?
Yes.
Lembrecht?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Anything from Mr. Desiderio? Okay, thank you. Ms. Fritzen?
2 items, Mayor. The first one is Duran Hedden House and Garden is interested in having a social affair permit, although it's not that much of a social affair, but according to the state of New Jersey, ABC, you need to have a license for the distribution to adults only of 1 ounce of hard cider, which goes along with their September programming.
I think they should offer more than 1 ounce.
Second.
So actually, the reason why I bring this up to you is because Duran Hedden is on Township of Maplewood property. So you must.
Is there a motion to allow Duran Hedden to
So
do this?
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Okay, my other item is also concerning ABC. And I think you remember we have a pending ABC transfer hearing that I thought was going to be tonight, but they asked for it to be at the next meeting on September 19th. And that is person-to-person and place-to-place transfer of the M160 license, which you very recently heard. And I will send you the materials again because it's been quite a while, and I want to make sure that you're up to speed for the hearing at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Anything from Ms. Fritzen?
Ms. Fritzen, I realize you may not have the date tonight, but if maybe at the next meeting, if you don't have it tonight, you could give us the final date when people need to register to vote if they want to vote on Election Day in November, and where
I
there's
sure
going to.
will.
What?
I sure will. I
Okay,
do
and,
not have
and
it
also if there's
offhand.
going to be any, any late night or
Well,
any
we'll
other.
definitely have a late night. We always do.
Okay.
We'll be open till 9. We don't have to, but we always are open until 9 PM on the final day to register.
We
And I'll
appreciate
get that
it.
information. And
So yeah,
also-
if you could, have that for September 19. And also, I just wanted to, the agenda says our next meeting is here in this building, and I just wanted to confirm if that is correct, and also if that will be the last meeting and we'll be moving back for the October 3rd meeting.
That's correct. The next meeting on the 19th is our last meeting here. And we'll return to Maplewood Town Hall for the October going forward meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Fritzen.
Thank you.
Okay. Reports from elected officials. Ms. Adams.
Wow. You never know who the mayor is going to pick for this. Mayor, I wanted to alert the public and invite the public on October 17th at 9 a.m. and going to 1 p.m. I've been working with Quiet Communities Incorporated out of Massachusetts and a resident volunteer from Chatham Township who tracked me down actually when she heard about the leaf blower ban. And so we've been meeting actually through conference calls and organizing an event, and Mr. Manning has been helping with it as well. So we're trying to get education out there, not just for residents, but for municipalities, elected officials, departments of public works directors, green teams, environmental commissions, about the future of landscape maintenance is based what we're calling it, with new technologies, more profits. We're also going to be inviting landscape companies, and the topics that will be during this half-day conference are the impacts of gas-powered equipment, the landscape maintenance practices that depend heavily on gasoline. Concerns are growing about their impact on pollution, the environment, emissions, noise, the health of workers, children, residents. The presentation will provide context for understanding the issues and the need for more sustainable, healthier options. There'll be a health panel with a pediatrician and chair of the Committee on Environmental Health in New York, and some other, these are, we're still gathering speakers. The promise of electric technology will have commercial grade electric and battery operated technology and equipment. There'll be demonstrations of those and a business panel to go over that and how businesses can grow their business by going greener. And for the health of our community and for our residents, I think this is important. And since we passed the leaf blower ban this year as a annual law, we have been reached out, and there's interest by not only residents of other communities, but of elected officials. So we feel like there's a lack of understanding. It's, the noise annoys some people, but not other people. And, it's minimized to something that is far less than it actually is. And since our ozone layer is depleting, we're seeing major problems with our environment and our weather patterns. So fossil fuels need to be eliminated and their use curtailed as much as possible, and in an area where their use is growing in the wrong direction. So this, I urge everybody, I'll refresh everybody's memory. We'll be getting information out on this as we finalize the topics and everything, but mark on your calendar the morning of October 17th. It's a Tuesday, so I know it'll be difficult for some people. We're hoping we can get mostly elected officials from neighboring communities in the region to attend, and their directors of public works in particular. So that's all I have for now, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGehee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of items. First, I'd like to thank the founders of the Porch Fest event on Sunday. That was an awesome time. Mood-ring, and there was a children's group there called Omnish International, and Flip the Script. I had a wonderful time. I got a chance to dance with the deputy mayor. which
Yeah,
was
I
nice.
had no input on that. I should have, filed charges.
Yes, well, no, peace on earth. That was a wonderful event, and again, to the founders, I salute you. I also want to take a second to thank the administrators of the buses during the New Jersey Transit transition period. I was a bus rider for the whole summer, and they were absolutely professional and phenomenal. And I appreciate the work that was done by the township, by Mayor DeLuca, to make sure that we had those buses, and those buses were excellent. Likely we'll be doing some more repairs next summer, and hope to see that quality of service by those bus drivers and by those administrators in next summer. I also want to bring to attention a couple of events that are happening in our town. I think there's some great events, and they kind of show the quality and the character of our town. Starting tomorrow afternoon through Sunday evening at Coda Restaurant, there will be a 10% donation of any dinner sales for a single mother in the community, Ginny Romero, who is on a fixed income due to disability, and is facing some challenges. So if you are going to go and dine out in the next 3 evenings, please go to Coda and think about, patronizing Coda, as 10% of those proceeds will go to Ms. Romero. Also, on the 8th, we're going to have a Soma Film Festival event at the Woodland, which should be a great event. Matthew Solomon's running that event, and so if you have time, go out to see the movie that'll be there. This Friday, part of an organization that I started in the spring, and it's in a pilot mode, the Maplewood Mentors Organization. One of our flagship events is occurring. It's an open gym night run by retired officer Mike Morrison. We're kind of kicking it off due to the recent events, and we're hoping that the successful turnout that we had in May will occur again. We had a lot of unfortunate events that happened in our town. It was very humbling and heartfelt to see, some of our good officers there, as well as some of our youth, mostly of color, just having a good time and being together in fellowship, playing some ball and meeting each other. So, there is opportunity to strengthen and heal, and this is just one part of this overarching event. Also coming up on Saturday is the Rent Party by Chris Dixon, a wonderful event right here in Maple Crest Park, which will be wonderful from, I think, noon to 10. Please come out, bring some canned goods. It's a wonderful cause. I think Chris said to me the other day that the rent parties will start up again toward the end of this month, so it's a wonderful cause. The Achieve is having a 5K on the 16th. So hopefully you can put on your running shoes and come walk or run. And, Achieve does a wonderful stuff for our organization in town, for our schools. And then also, I will leave you with this last one. On the 16th, evening of 16th, there will be, or afternoon and evening of 16th, is the Bob Miller Oyster Fest. This has become a traditional event in our town. There are various prices. There's $10 for youth, there's $25, and there's a VIP package of $125. Now, it's a good time had by all. There's, beverages, and there's oysters and a lot of food. But the reason why I bring it up is because there's also a screen testing there for skin cancer. I was tested last summer, and they identified something. And so I had to actually go in for further tests and have some things removed. And unfortunately for me, it was benign, but it's serious, folks. So it's not only an opportunity to have a good time, but it's an opportunity to get tested and to catch things before it could potentially be too late. So think about going out to support that event and also have a good time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Limbrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like to take a moment to recognize and thank the management and staff at the Maplewood Community Pool for a very successful season that just concluded yesterday. A lot of hard work and lots of great summer days by the pool for our residents. I wanted to thank the management and staff of the pool, and also the folks at the Recreation Department for their work in this successful season. And also just want to acknowledge that our kids are heading back to school this week. A lot of our students are going back tomorrow, so I want to just wish the best for a safe and happy and healthy school year to our students, the parents in this district, and all of our teachers and administrators, including particularly our new superintendent, Mr. Ficara, and our brother and sisters on the Board of Education for a successful year. And we look forward to doing all that we can here as a township to working with the schools and helping the students and parents of the district have a successful year. Mr. Mayor, that's my report.
Great, thank you. Ms. Larrier?
No report, Mayor.
Okay, I have 5 items. First, on New Jersey Transit, today the train started running back into Penn Station. Hopefully they'll run on time, but I guess they don't. Today was not a good day, right? I got some messages that it wasn't. So we will continue to press New Jersey Transit. Want to let you know that last week I organized a call of elected officials along the Morris-Essex line. We are going to request a meeting with the leadership of New Jersey Transit, the current leadership, because Amtrak is making some noise about repairs again next summer. And we want to make sure that we're on the front end of that decision-making, not being left out again. So we will be reaching out to the current leadership. I expect the leadership to change once a new governor comes in, and we'll continue those conversations with the gubernatorial candidates and whoever is successful, and his or her team that runs New Jersey Transit next year. My office hours are next Tuesday, the 12th, from 7 to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. Want to just give you a couple quick updates. One, I believe all the registered voters in town received a letter from Linda Von Nessy, the clerk of the board, asking for election day workers, those people who sit at the desks and get us to come in and sign our papers and have us go up and vote. You get $200. It's a very long day. What are the hours, Ms. Fritzen?
They have to be there at the polls at 5:15 a.m. and they finish up, depending on, the polls close at 8.
Okay.
They usually get out somewhere between 8:30 and 9. So it's a kind of long day.
So $200 a day is some compensation.
But that's a raise from what they used to get.
It used to be 100, right? Yes. Yeah. So anyway, if folks are interested, they can call the Hall of Records, the clerk of the Board of Elections. Want to let everyone know that our municipal court was one of 5 selected in Essex County to do a survey of public perception of the courts regarding the services that they provide. And this is part of the Supreme Court Advisory Committee on Access and Fairness. And on September 18th, in our lobby here, there'll be folks out there doing in-person surveys of people who come in to use the court that day. And that is being done by the Superior Court Essex Division of the Superior Court of New Jersey. And lastly, I want to announce that we received an award of $235,000 from the Department of Transportation for our Phase 2 project of Parker Avenue. This is part of the municipal aid program. This is the part of the Transportation Trust Fund, and the reason that the gas tax was increased last year, municipalities do get some of that money. So I just want to let you know that we did receive that. With that, what I'd like to do is get a motion to adjourn the open session and go into closed, and we can do the reading right here.
Yes.
Second.
Sorry.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Larrier? Yes. Mr. Lembrecht.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yes, and for closed,
Yes, Mayor, I'm going to read that right now. Whereas Section 80 Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 Public Laws 1975 permits the exclusion of the public from meeting certain circumstances. Whereas this public body is the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maywood, County of Essex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion upon any action upon the herein specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter discussed as follows: personnel and
legal
Legal.
legal.
and contract.
And contracts. Anticipate at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams? Ms. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht?
Yes.
McGee?
Is it raining?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
11.
Go ahead, it's boring. It's boring, yeah.
Oh, because of the window, yes. Lisa was right about the second.
Maybe the cops have coffee.
No problem.